Good morning. On half a day, the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing is now called to order. Today is Friday, October 7th. The time now is 9:06. Notice for this public hearing were disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on Friday, September 30th, and then on October 4th. Again, today is Friday, October 7th. It's 9:06. The bill that will be heard this morning is Bill 327-36, an act to add a new Article 13, Chapter 77, Division 2, Title 12, Guam Code Annotated, relative to allowing the business contributing to the design and construction of the Guam National Tennis Federation facilities to be eligible for tax credit. Physical note for Bill 327-36 was requested on July 26, and it was received and disseminated to all senators via email by the Committee on Rules on August 2nd. Those testifying on behalf of Bill 327-36 are invited, and we have Mr. Smith. Written testimony. The general rules for this public hearing. Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide my legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopying. Testimonies may be read, and lengthy testimonies should be summarized to about 5 minutes. But if you need additional time, there's no problem on that one. Those testifying will be allowed to present all testimony. Once you're done, please remain in the room for question or for additional testimony as may be desired by the members of the committee. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violation of the general rule of conduct will result in removal from the public hearing. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony and will be removed from the room. When you speak, please make sure the microphone is on, that you speak into the microphone. You state your name and your title for the record. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joined this morning by my colleague, Senator Chris Duenas. Good morning, my colleagues, and to everyone watching via television and the YouTube channel. Today we are here to discuss Bill 327, introduced by myself. This bill is an act to add a new Article 13, Chapter 77, Division 2, Title 12, Guam Code Annotated, relative to allowing the business contributing to the design and construction of the Guam National Tennis Federation tennis facilities to be eligible for tax credit. This legislation is to allow business to contribute to the capital improvement of the Guam National Tennis Federation facilities, which contributing business may be eligible for tax credit. With this legislation, total amount of tax credit against the BBT shall not exceed $600,000 over a 3-year period, and no more than $200,000 in tax credits shall be authorized for each year of the program. After the 3-year period, the legislature may extend the eligibility period until such time that all eligible tax credits are exhausted. The Guam National Tennis Federation has supported our athletes with state-of-the-art tennis facilities for over 50 years. GNTF desires to expand their facilities due to high demand, as many of our island residents prioritize their health. The Tennis Federation has gone through capital improvements in the last 2 years with the help of private businesses, which allowed them to build a self-sustaining national tennis center to further develop the sport of tennis and allow the sport to grow among our youth. With this legislation, the Guam Tennis Federation will be able to continue meeting the demands for tennis programs and competition. As we promote the health of our people, partnering with the private sector is also beneficial, as it provides the necessary tools for our people to maintain and achieve a healthy lifestyle. I look forward to a healthy discussion and is open to any recommendation to strengthen this legislation. I now ask Mr. Smith to please give your testimony, sir.
Good morning, Senators. My name is Torgan Smith. I'm the president of the Guam National Tennis Federation, and I'm here to testify in support of this bill. As you know, and the bill says the GNTF was given this property through public law for 25-year lease, which extend to 50-year lease. And it took us about 10 years before we finally were able to break ground and build the facility. We started the facility phase 1 in 2019. We opened in February of 2020 and closed in March of 2020 for the COVID, but we were able to, pretty quickly open again, and tennis being a safe sport. But we were able to raise and build the phase 1, which is 6 tennis courts and a office building with locker rooms for about just over $1.5 million, which was private business donations. We sold court naming rights, and we were able to build the facility. One of the options for court naming rights is $100,000 support, was $10,000 over 10 years. So we did borrow some money with the sponsorship as a debt service, but the interest has been quite tough. So this support from the tax credits will help us to pay down some of our debt. And we've also, with the demand for the courts, we've been able to start phase 2, and we're just about finished with adding 5 additional courts. So we'll have a total of 11 courts, which is phase 2 will be our final phase. We'll utilize all of the 5 acres of property and be finished with the courts. We've been able to overcome the COVID and have more people playing tennis, which is good for the community, good for healthy lifestyle. We also have been able to host this summer for the first time since 2019 our World Tennis Tour events, which brings in people from all over the world. We have over 200 applicants to the tournament. We can only accept 32, and then we accept another 32 in qualifying, but we have literally A to Z, Australia to Zimbabwe entering the tournament, countries all over the world. Usually we end up with more regional players coming in, but we do always have people from Europe, so it's a great opportunity for exposure for Guam. The Japanese team that came for our event, or it's individuals, but one of the coaches was Japan national coach, and he asked if they could bring their players here to Guam to train before the Australian Open. So it's great exposure for the island of Guam to be exposed regionally and internationally. But most importantly is for our community and for development of the kids. On top of the 6 courts we built in phase 1, we also built 4 what we call 36-foot courts, or under 10 courts. It's miniaturized tennis courts where kids under 10 can have a chance to play tennis. Instead of a 72-foot court, it's a 36-foot court. So it's half the size. It's not as intimidating as the big court. So you see it in other sports where they have little soccer goals and things like this. We have less pressurized balls so the kids can play without the ball bouncing over their head with little kids. So we really want to, our mission is to develop more tennis players in Guam. And we also support internationally we play the Davis Cup, which is the World Cup of Tennis, and the Billie Jean King Cup, which is the World Cup of Women's Tennis. We had a good showing for our girls at August. We finished 5th out of 8 countries, and obviously out of those 8 countries, Guam is by far the smallest population, but shows our tennis program is pretty good. We go next week to Bahrain for the Davis Cup. So we'll be participating against 12 other nations, mostly from the Middle East, but we're looking forward to. We've done well there in Bahrain and in previous Davis Cups. So from the development pyramid, from the under TENS, where we try to go into schools and promote tennis. We leave the we do a program and teach the PE teachers how to sort of introduce tennis to the kids. We leave behind rackets and balls provided by the International Tennis Federation or the USTA, and encourage them to come out for tennis at the center or anywhere in Guam. But the tennis center obviously is a location that they can have a chance to play. We would like to request that the bill be amended to be rather than over 600,000 over 3 years, if we could change it to 300,000 each year for 2 years. So the same total amount of money, but if we can get it in 2 years instead of 3 years, that would be helpful. And I think that concludes my testimony. I'll also give some written testimony from the GNTF board, but thanks, and I'll answer any questions.
Thank you. I'd like to also recognize colleagues that have joined us, Senator Brown. Senator Duane, do you have any questions for the Mr. Smith?
Teachers Masi, Torgan, and we really appreciate what the Federation has done. Tennis has been very successful on Guam, and I know of some young people who've gone on to even get scholarships, in going off island to college and the like. So I certainly think that this is a worthwhile investment. The report from BBMR basically shows it as being negligible. So I think it's something that, particularly with the investment in what you're attempting to do here is, and continuing to do, providing these opportunities and outlets for our youth is, I think, a worthwhile investment. I only have one question. When I was Director of Youth Affairs, I used to reach out to a lot of organizations, and we had a lot of success in terms of providing clinics and other things to troubled youth. A lot of times when we work with our young people that are, having difficulty and would be, members that are, or young people that are clients of the Department of Youth Affairs, a couple of things can turn their life around. Education certainly is at the top of that, but also involvement in sports and extracurricular activities. Would you consider, or if you're not already, at least maybe a couple times a year offering to Department of Youth Affairs some sort of clinic for those clients who would be willing to learn more about tennis and maybe have an opportunity to have an outing, at the courts where they're kind of mentored if they show an interest?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And I think we have done like our schools program there, where we've gone and introduced the tennis and left behind some equipment, and we can go back and do that there, or we can have them come out and have a clinic. A lot of times we do the schools so that no one has to worry about transportation, and we can do it there and leave it behind, and they can continue to do it, and it's not just a one-time thing. But yeah, we can host a clinic for sure. We would definitely support that.
So if I wrote in a section that was basic, just saying that the Federation will provide no less than 2 annual clinics to the Department of Youth Affairs, you wouldn't be opposed to that?
I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Great.
We would work in conjunction with Department of Youth Affairs. Hopefully they would help us to schedule it and this kind of thing.
And the reason why I reinforce that, Torgan, is because I know of the work that you've done in the schools, and typically, of course, if those young people are not having interactions with the law to where they become clients of DYA, maybe their parents and others are more amenable to, they have that opportunity because of what you're doing already. It's kind of unique because I've seen kids, through either music, sports, education, once they grab onto something, it sparks a turn in their life. So just basically, kind of a giving back as you're already doing in the schools, but particularly to troubled youth. Like I said, a lot of times these type of things reach them. So I'm going to work with the chairman to see if, the body would accept an amendment like that. And I think it's a great testimony to, your organization that, not only just in the schools, but particularly to troubled youth, provide at least that outlet and that opportunity. I know on on the campus, there is, basketball courts and different things where the kids, have their, that opportunity. But I think just at least a couple times a year saying, we'll provide a clinic and to any clients that are willing to. And I just think that that would be a great give back, considering, that I support these kind of things that support sports. So I'll work with the chairman, and I thank you for your willingness to work with me on that and see if it's the will of the body as well.
Sure.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm good on this one. Thank you. Sijus Masi.
Thank you, Senator Duenas. Senator Brown, do you have any questions for Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I certainly understand the intent of the bill and the desired outcome, and I'm sure that your organization will, encourage and put in place the proper maintenance of the facilities once they're built. I just want to note for the record, though, I mean, we are talking, and, our colleagues have a tendency to do this route of tax credits because they don't want to directly appropriate in the floor of the legislature. And we've done this for a number of things, including the Raceway Park, which probably politically, if it was the priority of the budget, and we actually just went through the budget process, would not happen because the other demands of funding the educational system, the hospital, the courts and other critical services of the community would weigh much heavier with regards to priority. And we're just noting here that we're talking about $600,000 over a 3-year period that would not go into the general fund and would not be appropriated to these other critical priorities. So I think in order to even make this agreeable, and I'm happy to hear our chairman recently now has come out after the budget, raising concern, to discourage his colleagues from doing additional appropriations because we're already starting to run short. And I think you know the reality of our business. You're in the business world as well. While some areas of construction and military are very active, we currently are not going to be able to generate what we need to even keep this current government and the government that's grown over the last 2 years in operation. So, I mean, I understand the point. I don't doubt your organization, who's done very well, will continue to do so. Perhaps maybe the amendment by Senator Chris might make this a little more agreeable if there's the contribution back to assist these other students and members of our community in a positive way, because again, it's a diversion and it's a way of getting around the direct budget process. Because you're talking about $600,000, it's not going to go to these other critical services. So I don't argue the desire and intent and the outcome, because I'm sure in particular your group will be very successful with it. But I just think we need to note it's taking out $600,000. It's not going to go to other critical needs that in the months ahead are going to surface. So I just want to take note of that. But other than that, I don't have any questions. I think you've elaborated quite well the intent of your organization and what you will do having these funds provided to your organization. So with that, Mr. Chair, I don't have any further comment, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Brown. And Mr. Smith, just to let you know that the recommendation of Senator Duenas, the staff is already working on that amendment. I just spoke to Senator Duenas about that. So we're going to include it in that one.
Okay.
And with that, thank you, colleagues, for being present today for this, and providing insights and recommendations to further strengthen this legislation, or even just to pose the question on the funding side. Then to allow the business to be eligible for tax credits from the design, repair, and maintenance of the Guam National Tennis Federation facilities. As we are on the road to recovery from the COVID pandemic, we must continue to promote the health of our people, and this legislation will provide more facilities for our athletes and our youth, expanding the GNTF Tennis Center with the help of private sector will allow more people to access more facilities, which they'll be motivated to strive for a healthier lifestyle. Sijus Masi. And with that, Bill 327-36 is duly heard by the committee, and the public hearing is now adjourned. The time now is 9:25. Sijus Masi, please be safe. Thank you, Mr. Smith.